members, I believe.
We
Is that
do,
correct?
Mayor. That's
Okay,
correct.
Madam Secretary, I certify that we do have a quorum for this public hearing. Moving to roll call for the Planning and Zoning Commission and the quorum, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mayor. We have 6 out of the 7 here, and we do have a quorum.
All right. Moving to item 4 on our agenda. Introduction of the agenda and format of hearing for the staff. And for you, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Martin Griggs, Planning Manager within Community Development. For tonight's joint special meeting, we'll have a call to order, then a staff report, then the applicant will have an opportunity to present their project. Then we'll have public comments in support or opposition of the project, followed by council, commission, and staff discussion. Afterwards, we'll shift into a city council meeting where the council will have an opportunity to vote to either approve as requested, approve with conditions, deny the request, or to table the item for more information. On tonight's agenda, we originally were scheduled to have 2 meetings or 2 items, but we only have 1 on for tonight. We'll have a discussion about 3291 Broadway for a minor auto repair facility, and the item that was pulled from the agenda due to the applicant not having their appropriate signage was the item at 1853 Pearland Parkway. So we'll turn it over back to you, Mayor, for the first item tonight.
All right. Moving to Madam Chair, would you present the special meeting verbiage?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This is joint special meeting number 1. A request by Devan Pharis, Estacado Interests LLC applicant on behalf of Phillip McAliley, Dairy Bell LP owner, for approval of a conditional use permit, CUP, for an auto repair minor use within the general business GB district to accommodate an auto oil change facility on approximately 0.4968 acres of land. The general location is 3291 Broadway Street. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Moving to item A, application information and case summary. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council and City Planning Commission. My name is Florence Buaku with the Community Development Department. Today's request is a conditional use permit to allow auto repair minor use in the general business district. The location is 3291 Broadway Street, and the specific use is for an oil change facility. So far, staff has not received any comments in favor or in opposition to this request. The subject property is zoned general business. It is located at the corner of Barry Rose Road and Broadway Street, and it's located on the corner of a larger commercial center. It has an underlying land use of retail, offices, and services, and it has a similar use all around with a little bit of medium density residential to the north. And so here's a view of the subject property and the properties across from the road from the subject property. So the first image and the third image show the existing liquor store, which is currently vacant and will be demolished to accommodate the oil change facility. And then across from Barry Rose Road from the subject property is a gas station. And fourth image shows the larger shopping center within which the oil change facility will be located. And just for your information, staff looked at auto-related uses within half mile and 1 mile of the subject property. And the red push pins represent existing oil change facility within the 1 mile and half mile and 1 mile of the subject property. As you can see, there are roughly 6 oil change facilities within a mile, 3 less than a mile, and another 3 right outside the 1 mile radius from the site. Here's a site plan showing the proposed layout for the oil change facility. The service bays are oriented towards Barry Rose Road, and the shorter side of the facility is oriented towards Broadway, which is staff's preferred orientation. And then the elevation renderings you see for the facade. The first one is the facade facing Barry Rose Road. That's the longer one showing the base. And then the shorter one is the facade facing Broadway Street. Staff has reviewed the request and found that it is in line with the comprehensive plan and the land use plan or the zoning for the district. The property is located along Broadway, which is in the Corridor Overlay District. The applicants would be required to dedicate some right-of-way towards the expansion of Broadway, which they are prepared to do. And then the property is already platted and has access to city utilities. Staff also reviewed the request based on the criteria for approving conditional use permits outlined in the Unified Development Code, and the request meets all the criteria. And I just want to call out one, which is the fact that it incorporates features to minimize adverse effects, including visual impacts on adjacent properties. And this is specifically because of the orientation away from Broadway Street, which is the Corridor Overlay District. It orients the service base towards the existing gas station. And so based on that, staff recommends approval of the requested conditional use permit with a couple of conditions. That condition is that the service base of the proposed facility would be oriented towards Barry Rose Road, as shown on the site plan. And that's, as I said earlier, because Broadway is a corridor overlay district and we want to minimize the visual impact from Broadway. And also that the facade shall be developed in substantial conformance with materials depicted in the renderings. And so on the renderings, they do depict some brick, and because currently, because of state law, staff does not have the ability to regulate building materials. And so if the applicant is proposing to use some high quality materials, we do recommend that this be adopted while we are adopting the conditional use permit, if it is approved. And that ends staff report. Thank you.
I'll ask my Mayor Pro Tem to welcome the applicant for his presentation.
Yes, Mr. Devan Pharis, are you online?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, staff, members of Planning and Zoning and City Council. My name is Devan Pharis. Alongside me is Matt Peterson. We're with Estacado Interests. Our address is 2800 Gilder Drive, Plano, Texas. As staff mentioned, we're planning to redevelop the old liquor store located at 3291 Broadway Street next to Walgreens into a Take 5 oil change. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Take 5, but they're an oil change facility that also offers filter replacement, wiper changing, and state inspections as the only additional services. Next slide, please. This is an aerial image of our property's location, as staff said, at the northeast corner of Barry Rose Road and Broadway Street. Next slide, please. This is a view of our site plan, which you can see based on the aerial that we provided previously. We're going to use this 2 existing curb cuts that service this property on Broadway and Barry Rose Road. We'll also have a cross connection point with Walgreens on the east side, which is already existing. are also already existing, excuse me. Both of these will allow us to maintain the existing traffic flows for the area, with proposed traffic for our development likely being less than or equal to what previously existed on this site, and less than that of a quick serve restaurant or other high traffic uses that could go on this property. Initially, our site plan was parallel to Broadway, and we now have it perpendicular. As you can see during our CUP review process, we talked to the city staff and they asked that we rotate this building to face the bay doors away from Broadway, which we agreed to do. Next slide, please. This is a view of our building elevations. This building will be fully covered in masonry materials and will have an attractive standing seam roof with articulation here on the tower component. Next slide, please. This slide shows average customer traffic for Take 5 locations in the US by time of day. The highest performing stores in the Take 5 system see about 50 visitors per day, which averages out to about 3.4 visitors per hour and 4.8 customers at peak hour. And customers spend approximately 10 minutes on average at the store when they remain in their vehicle at all times. Next slide, please. Also wanted to point out the small nature of this property. It's less than half an acre. As auto repair minor, we're required to have 7 spaces, while other uses that might go on this property, such as a restaurant, could need 30 to 60 spaces, which this lot's just simply too small for. In addition, most of today's retailers, such as modern day restaurant QSRs, require larger parking fields, drive-throughs, oversized outdoor seating areas, etc. And like I said, this lot's really just too small for any of those. Next slide, please. Wanted to touch on the fact that the future land use map and comprehensive plan call this property and corridor out as retail offices and services, as staff mentioned. In addition, our use is permitted by right in the general business zoning classification. As it relates to the corridor overlay district, it's our understanding this was in large part put in place to preserve Pearland Parkway and especially provide greater control for properties that immediately abut residential neighborhoods, neither of which apply to our property. Also, as developers, we appreciate the CUP process and enjoyed working with the city staff on this application. We feel that the CUP's worked in that it allowed us to confer with staff regarding our proposed development site plan and required us to rotate the building per the city's preference. Next slide, please. Lastly, it's our priority to not only preserve but enhance the character and integrity of the Broadway corridor, along with the surrounding properties and neighborhoods, and to develop a project that we're personally proud to have in our own community. By developing a building that's smaller than the existing building on this property by 70%, we're able to add more open space, landscaping, and reduce impervious cover. Lastly, Take 5 is a proven concept in the regional market and is committed to the property with the intent of being a responsible corporate citizen and good steward of the local community for years to come. Thank you for your time.
I believe that completes the applicant's presentation. Moving to item number 3, Councilmember Councilmember Little, would you present what person wishes to speak for or against the proposed request as it stands today?
Is there anyone signed up that wishes to speak for or against this CUP? Josh, you saw anybody signed up?
Matt Peterson had signed up. I'm sorry, I'm not Josh. It's Lawrence over in legal. Matt Peterson had signed up. I didn't know if he was just there supporting Mr. Pharis or if there was something additional he wanted to say.
He was with Mr. Pharis.
There was nothing additional I wanted to add. Thank you.
Mayor, that completes the public comments.
Okay. Moving in our agenda to item number B. Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council, and the staff come together and consolidate their comments and their thoughts and call for a position report, starting with the Planning Commission. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Matt. Start with Commissioner Earls.
Thank you, Ms. Kate. I don't have any comments. I appreciate it.
All right, Commissioner Boswell.
Yes, I have a couple of comments. I would not be in favor of this. There appears to be 6 oil stations within a mile radius of where this location would be. I think it could be better use of the property. I do understand the idea of free market, but I don't agree with another oil change. So this is not something that I would be in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Boswell. Commissioner Dansby?
No comment.
Commissioner Fuertes?
Yes, ma'am. I have to say it is a very challenging site. You know, a half acre on a busy corner is going to be very difficult to find a good user on. And I think the history of that corner has reflected just that. I guess the plus is that we get a new building out of it in town. Some negatives to consider: it is an oil change facility, and that's why we have the CUP process, is to look at the automotive uses under a microscope, or maybe a magnifying glass would be a better statement. Again, it is a busy corner, and maybe that is a negative for a use like this. But I didn't I didn't really hear that in the presentation, especially from the applicant. They show more of a well-rounded, spread out traffic flow. I guess I go back to the picking winners and losers. I realize there are some others in the area, but I don't think this business would come in doing their own due diligence in Pearland unless they felt like they could, have a successful business. And I'm sure they've done some studies to validate that. But again, this is one of those times I'm glad I'm not voting. It's up to the city council members to vote instead of the planning and zoning. Thank you.
Commissioner Henricks?
No, I don't have any comments. Thank you, Laney.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Ms. Waku, I think you mentioned something about Rice Dryer Road, and I was curious as to how that came into play for this property.
And so the property is located at the corner of Barry Road and Broadway, and I just forgot to change that.
Okay. I also want to thank you, Ms. Waku, for that very, very wonderful map you gave with the keys and the little key and the mile and half mile. That was very helpful. Thank you. I don't really have any other comments except for I am glad to see a new building go in on that corner. It does concern me that it's so close to other oil change places, but that is a difficult corner. So I have mixed feelings about it.
Does that complete your report, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir. I think I got everybody. Thank you.
Good, fine, thank you. Moved on to item number 2, which is the City Council report, starting with Councilmember Alondo.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question for staff or maybe for the applicant, and that is, what is, we're saying there's several other oil change spots in that area. If this business were to fail, what is the relative ease with which you could convert it to another building? I guess what would be the environmental concerns? How difficult would that be? Obviously, it'd probably be more difficult than, just a random retail store and less difficult than a gas station, but I'm just kind of trying to get a sense of exactly how difficult that is.
As Councilmember Orlando, I would love to pass this to the applicant to discuss, as they may have better experience dealing with those types of conversions.
Appreciate that.
So if we could
Yeah, so this is actually a ground lease with our tenant. Take 5, and based on how the leases are structured, the tenant actually owns the improvements on the lot. And when they vacate, whether that be by, them walking the lease, which we obviously don't see happening here, we wouldn't be leasing it to them, or their term expiring, they actually demolish the improvements. So, looking forward, if that were to ever happen, this actually would be a vacant, piece of property. So you get a new building for now, and then when Take 5 leaves, if they ever leave, it'd be better than what's currently there, which is the old liquor store building.
Right. And so I guess I would ask, I would imagine this being a large national chain, that they have some familiarity with doing those demolitions or conversions successfully at this point.
Yes, that's correct. They do. And like you said, they are a large national chain. They have 600 locations. When they, vacate, which they typically only do if, they're doing a merger and have stores that are, too close together and competing, they, clean up the site from an environmental standpoint, which, they haul all of their own oil off on a regular basis. They don't keep it in a pit in the ground or anything like that. So they're, I would say, very familiar with that process and very responsible about doing it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, appreciate that. My perspective here is that, it's frankly not it's not a sexy development that necessarily gets me super excited. But I have a Take 5 right here across from where I live, and I use it, and it's a great service, and it's something that's needed. And if it's relatively easy to remove it, unlike a gas station or something, I don't see a super compelling argument for not allowing it to go in. But those are my thoughts currently, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, as the applicant, I'd also like to add that Take 5 is ultimately owned by Driven Brands. They own International Car Wash Group and a handful of other retailers. So they have experience not just with oil change facilities, but a number of different businesses under their umbrella as well.
Carbone.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I don't believe we should be picking winners and losers. That we caught some criticism with this being a liquor store and one right across the street, and I think I made the comment of let the best business survive, and clearly it did. So I think this is an interesting use of the property. Looks like it works, and I look forward to getting that additional assessed value on the ground. That's all my comments, Mayor.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess normally wouldn't prefer to see another oil change place. I guess we saw the map where there's a lot of them, but I think looking at this, that building's just been sitting there for a while. So, I'm glad to see that we figured out a way to get the base facing away from Broadway and use the existing cutouts and things like that. I see one of the lines that y'all had in your write-up, this for the applicant, was that Take 5 is a proven concept in the regional market, committed to property with the intent of being a responsible corporate citizen and good steward of the local community for years to come. So I was appreciative to hear your comments about, if you were to end up closing that location, that you would provide demolition. I think that would also be great. I'm very happy to hear that. Is that something that's existing language you're saying in the lease with the property owner? Is that what you're saying? Is the applicant still on?
Oh, sorry, I had muted myself on my end. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm cool with it. Like I said, I prefer maybe to have something different, but I guess, we can't be picky, especially right now. So I'm happy that you are bringing this in. You'll generate some sales tax for us and add value to that land. So I wish you the best of luck if it gets approved tonight. I'm for it. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Little, almost went around you.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think this is a good location for that property. It's suited size-wise, and it would be well suited for many other businesses, as history has shown that the corner seems to be somewhat cursed. So I wish you guys a lot of luck. I had my oil changed on Saturday, and I waited like 45 minutes. So if you guys can change in 5 minutes, then I'll be delighted. And as Councilman Carbone said, it's not our job to pick winners and losers. I'm not worried about a saturation. The market will control, and the market should pick the winners and losers, as it did with that liquor store that was the previous tenant. So I have no problem with it. Wish you the best of luck. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just appreciate you coming in and trying to do something with this corner. It's kind of sat vacant for a long time before the liquor store, and it's been vacant for quite some time now. So I look forward to seeing something there that's going to be able to be successful.
Okay, Councilmember Perez.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be so brief. Sorry, everybody. First, I want to say I'm for the use, so I'm okay with the with us moving forward the conditional use permit tonight. But there are a couple of one amendment I would like to propose, and then a couple of concerns I want to discuss that will not affect the approval of the use, but I think it's worthy of us putting it out there for the applicant. So one, kind of in fairness to the most previous applicant that came in and what we required of them. We requested that we try and add some higher elevation landscaping along the corridors where the bays face, to try and mask those bays from the street. Particularly, that would have been on Pearland Parkway, which is a major thoroughfare. Berry Rose is a secondary thoroughfare. We have plenty of room. The landscape setback, the landscape area between the curb and the property line leaves plenty of room for us to add some mature foliage there that could help, if not immediately, eventually mask the bays. I think it's a quality development. No knock to the use, but open bays are always difficult to look at. Really hate to see them when we come down our major corridors. So if there's a way to just kind of mask that, I would like to add that, and I'll offer an amendment here in a minute after Member Owens makes any comments he may have, to see if the other council members agree with me. Secondary issue, not associated with the new use and not associated with the approval tonight, but I would say y'all probably gonna need to revisit the site plan. Robert Upton, are you still on?
Yes, sir, Council.
So with respect to the site plan, since they're redeveloping the tract pretty significantly, typically the quote grandfathering of driveways is not necessarily given, particularly when tracts have mutual access agreements with adjacent developed properties. On both the driveways that exist or that are proposed, they do not meet our EDCM requirements for driveway spacings for a major or secondary thoroughfare. Is it your thought to allow them to apply for a variance through your department to allow these driveways, or would it be your thought that the driveways may not be approved even though they are in existing locations?
Well, there's a couple of things with that, Councilman Perez, is that one is we would like to have that variance through that process. Two, we always take a look at access agreements for cross access when they come in for true site plan development, so we can talk with them, with the applicant some more. Three, associated with that, it is a separate piece of property associated with the area. So we don't want to deny any potential access associated with that. So we would look more at the variance, but would also take a look at the one that's on Broadway. As there's a driveway and cross access right there that's pretty close, we'd like to talk to them about taking a look down the road when the site plan formally comes in for review about using that cross access there versus the one closing on Berry Rose, due with the fact that it is a separate parcel as well.
Thank you, Robert. I greatly appreciate that. So to the applicants, I want to make it clear that the Pearland's conditional use permit process, what we've done, the changes we've made here, which I think makes this process vastly superior to other zone cities that have similar processes. We're not going to tie your site plan to the approval. So you won't be obligated to provide this site plan other than the conditions that we will state in the conditional use permit, like where the phase face. However, that also means that your site plan is not approved because we allow the use. So just because you presented the site plan and we allow the use, you may not necessarily get these driveways if the engineering department doesn't grant the variance. And that is not something those variances are not something that council gets involved in. Typically. So that may be something you want to consider before you move forward after this conditional use permit is presumptively approved. You may want to talk with staff and find out what alternatives you may have to driveway spacing. I would say, as part of that discussion, I would bring up the concern is if you enter onto Broadway going westbound, with the intent to go into the facility and get a oil change probably on a Saturday at noon, there is nowhere for you to queue, not really constructively. So I know that when I get my oil changed at some of the other facilities and there's long waits, it tends to back up. And these always being tight sites, you want to try and avoid them. You want to try and give them as much queue as possible. So those are things to consider. After you get your conditional use permit, you need to get with your engineer. I would assume and I would hope that your engineer has already talked with staff about driveway spacing, is already well versed on our driveway spacing. It is easily found, it's published, so it shouldn't be news to them. But if it is, then before you get too far down the road, you need to figure that out. That's all I have until after Member Owen speaks. I'd like to offer the amendment about the landscaping to block the bays on Berry Rose.
Okay, Councilman Owens.
Yes, sir. Mayor, looking at this out there before you come into Kroger's, down to Berry Rose, you got 6 turn-ins to the right into the traffic side, into this parking lot, 6 of them. That means 6 of them going in, 6 of them coming out through there. And it's, what, 400 feet, something like that through there. And then when you come down Berry Rose, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 coming in the last 300 feet before you get to the light on 518. This is Pete's Liquor and it's supposed to have been the Gold Rush for another liquor store. We just finished or actually put in one on Pearland Parkway. I think we got a lot of jiffy, places to change oil through here. Brown's all the way down to 35. I would say the best opportunity is go buy Jiffy Lube. They did 5 oil changes a day. It'd be less money spent by the developer to do that. The person that's going to put it in, buy that one out. And you can do it down there because they're not doing any business at all down there and they can't keep employees for what they pay. I don't like the idea of so many of these coming in. I didn't like the idea of so many liquor stores coming in either. If we want to be known as liquor stores and oil change places, I guess that's what Pearland should be known as. But, I don't know. But, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not in agreement with this at all. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Information in the record. Let's move to item number 3, which will give the staff a chance to do a wrap up on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have, I was taking notes while we were discussing. There was a comment by the applicant that I want to address first before I get into some of the other issues. Within one of the slides, it said that the use was permitted by right. As we know, because we're here for a conditional use permit within the general business zoning district, minor automotive repair requires a conditional use permit. So just to clear up any misconstrued information there. Additionally, when on discussing with the driveways and the drive accesses, when Broadway is redeveloped and then there's a median in place, this will be forced to become right in, right out on the Broadway side. So I think that will lead to some additional clarification, and that completes the planning comments for this conditional use permit. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other question or comment at this point from staff? That wraps it up, Martin. Good. That's then, we're in something called a joint special meeting, which is slightly different than the preceding meeting. What we're doing is we're going through a hearing and a discussion of the issue and the type of development that's taking place there. And when we get all of that information together, all of that information morphs into what is known as the City Council new business item. So at this point, we will make a final decision here under our council new business discussion and approval. So at this point, what I'd like to do is ask Councilmember Carbone if he would present this item for our consideration. And I think Trent had that item too you wanted to discuss with you.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, resolution R 2020-CUP 20-00013. So moved.
Second, Hernandez.
More.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to offer an amendment to the resolution that we require landscaping at the southwest corner of the property at an elevation with the intent to substantially mask the bays that are facing Berry Rose from that roadway corridor.
Okay, we have an amending motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We do have a second. We're in any further discussion on the amended motion at this point?
I would ask, Martin, is there language that you may want to offer that would, I guess, better fine tune the language that I use for the amendment that could be less nebulous and easier for the applicant to follow?
The only thing I would add or change is to mimic the corridor overlay district and to, instead of to say to mask, to screen those bays. But that's the only thing I would change.
I think, Lawrence, if it's okay with you, then then my amendment is inclusive to the language that Martin just proposed.
But since we don't have your comments, we have not passed this yet.
Councilmember Owens, as you seconded it, do you have any opposition to that?
I have no opposition. Thank you.
You have a second? Okay. Madam Secretary, we do have a motion second on amended motion. We're amending the original motion at this point. Correct, Lawrence? So we're amending the original motion, and it's on the floor. Approval for your call.
Councilmember Perez.
Aye.
Councilmember Owens.
Aye.
Councilmember Orlando.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone.
Aye.
Councilmember Little.
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0 to amend resolution number R 2020-CUP 20-00013 to increase the landscaping at the southwest corner elevation to screen bays from Berry Road.
That information, we do have a minute motion on the floor. Is there any discussion, or at this point, we have I need a motion and a second to pass this.
I think maybe before we move forward to the end with the vote, does the applicant have any comments to the amendment to the motion or the comments about the driveways?
If you'd like to present those, yes.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself again. No, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry, technology's hard.
But
Tell me about it.
Just to be clear, you fully understand that the improvement of the use does not mean improvement of the project, correct?
Okay. We have a amended motion on the table. Is there a motion to pass that?
Mayor, we have
a second. And a second. Do we have a second? And a second.
Okay, so we're ready to vote for the original motion to include the amendment. Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Crystal, is this for the amended motion?
This is the, yes, sir. This is the original motion to include the amendment.
Aye.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Crystal. I'm less familiar with the phraseology that you use. This isn't the original motion because this is the amended motion. They've already voted to amend it, so.
Right. This is the amendment motion. Thank you, Lawrence.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Owens, I didn't know if that affected your vote, because I recall your comments.
For the, Lawrence, this is for the amended motion, not for the project, right?
We have amended the motion, so this would be for the project. Yes, sir.
And this is for the project, not for the amended motion for the landscape?
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm gonna change mine to no.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1 to amend resolution number 2020-CUP 20-00013 as amended.
We are now back to an amended motion before the City Council. Is there any further discussion on that item?
I apologize, Mayor. I believe that was for the amended motion.
Yes.
We voted on the amendment and the original motion amended, so we're finished.
Yes, sir. We're on to, Mayor, that concludes item C.
Moving in our agenda, I think I've got this one right this time. The adjournment that we're going to take place will be at 8:13.
So we're through, Tom?